A new Wordle puzzle is online. Click on the link to play.
Listening to the following video may give you clues. Please like and share the videos.
Goran Dragic getting swept is awesome news for Raptors fans. For Raptors fans, Goran Dragic getting swept is awesome.
The big-time shooting guard had a career season last year, averaging 20.3 points and 5.9 assists per game, while shooting 50.5% from the field and 40.8% from three-point range. He led an unlikely group of role players to 48 wins last season, despite Eric Bledsoe missing half the season.
He earned third-team All-NBA honors. This season, however, Dragic's role has been significantly diminished with the addition of Thomas.
Dragic is averaging only 16.2 points and 4.1 assists per game. Dragic's future in Los Angeles.
There are many questions regarding Goran Dragic's future in Los Angeles. Although he is in his 15th NBA season, the Serbian has been a disappointment for the Raptors this season.
He averaged 19.6 points per game during the Miami Heat's run to the 2020 NBA Finals, but he did have some career-high moments. It's unclear whether his trade to the Spurs will improve his production in the West, but that's another issue.
Obviously, Dragic's future in Los Angeles depends on his trade value. It's doubtful that the Lakers would want to trade Dragic, but it's possible they won't want to lose him to another team.
The Lakers are likely not willing to part with Dragic, as it could hurt their chances of acquiring a top 5 pick in the draft. Still, Dragic's presence could help the Lakers in the postseason.
The Lakers are a team that could use a ball handler in the backcourt. Having said that, Dragic's buyout is expected to be reached next season, so he needs to be re-signed.
If the Lakers get Dragic to sign him, it's a good move for the Lakers, but it won't turn the Lakers around. The Lakers are not the team that fans were hyped for during the off-season.
Although they still have LeBron James, their season has gone south and they are in 9th place in the Western Conference. Aside from Nash's trade offer, the Lakers and Warriors have expressed interest in acquiring Dragic.
Despite only playing 5 games this season, Dragic is still in his buyout year. Last season, the Raptors traded Dragic to Toronto for Kyle Lowry, and the two players have a good relationship.
Nash coached Dragic from 2008 to 2011. If the Raptors waived Dragic, the Dallas Mavericks could sign him.
While it would be hard for Dallas to match Dragic's salary, a trade with the Mavericks could get the job done. Dallas can match Dragic's salary, and a new contract for Lowry may also be in the cards.
Once the Raptors sign Lowry, Dallas can then pursue Dragic separately with Toronto using cap space. Lowry's influence on Ujiri's decision.
Toronto Raptors fans are ecstatic with the news of Goran Dragic's exit from the playoffs. After the Brooklyn Nets were swept by the Boston Celtics in the first round, it was natural for NBA fans to poke fun at them.
Toronto Raptors fans, on the other hand, took it personally, as they watched their favorite player take a L in Game 4. Whether it's because Dragic has a history with the team or he has a desire to be a part of the organization, fans were there to celebrate his emergence from the injury.
Last summer, the Raptors traded Goran Dragic to the Miami Heat in exchange for Kyle Lowry. After announcing the deal, Dragic made it clear that his higher ambitions go beyond playing in Toronto.
After being traded to the Raptors in the Kyle Lowry trade, he quickly soured relations with the franchise. Dragic ultimately ended up being traded or bought out by the Heat and joining the Nets in Brooklyn.
The Raptors ended up beating the Miami Heat in the first round, and Dragic's departure reflects the changing landscape of the after being held hostage for the majority of the first half of the year by the Philadelphia 76ers. Goran Dragic is now on the bench for the remainder of the season.
The Raptors will be without a starting point guard and are replacing him with Pascal Siakam and Scotty Barnes. Ultimately, the Raptors will be just fine without Goran Dragic.
And with that, they will continue to win with Dragic on the bench. The Raptors should get the win they need to advance to the second round of the playoffs.
As a result, Dragic may have a better chance to play a great role in the future for the Raptors. If he stays on the bench, the Raptors will be a strong contender in the Eastern Conference.
While the Raptors will face the Nets, they will likely be swept in the first round, so they'll need to win every game. And Lowry's sarcasm in the 2017 playoffs.
During Game 1, Kyle Lowry responded to questions about his lack of aggression. After that game, Lowry's whistling in the shootaround was a source of concern for some Raptors employees.
That season, Lowry was out with a sprained ankle and did not play in the last 2 games against Cleveland. Lowry's sarcasm in the playoffs was a cause for concern for the Raptors, who lost this series in 5 games.
This year's playoffs were one of Lowry's best. After a horrendous start, he turned it around and put up 96 points in 3 games against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Lowry added 21 rebounds and 18 assists in the series, which ultimately led to the Raptors reaching their first conference finals. Nevertheless, his performance was not enough.
In Game 6 against the Pacers, Lowry scored just 35 points in 42 minutes. The Raptors' most recent series against the Cavs was a test of Lowry's sarcasm.
He was booed at one point for being a good teammate to coach. The Raptors eventually lost the series, and Lowry's sarcastic witticism made him even more entertaining.
In his post-game press conferences, Lowry was quick to point out that he had a bad wrist injury. The Raptors' postseason sarcasm has earned him a place in history as one of the best players in the league.
Lowry had a stellar regular season, leading Toronto to their first 50-win season in franchise history. However, in the first round of the playoffs, Lowry shot just 32 and looked utterly frustrated.
Despite his frustration, Lowry managed to help the Raptors win 2 games. Throughout the playoffs, Lowry has a field goal percentage of 32%.
Lowry's value to the Raptors. For Toronto Raptors fans, the loss of Goran Dragic is a good thing.
It is a good reminder that he had bigger dreams than playing for the Raptors. Besides, he swept the Brooklyn Nets in Game 5 and was welcomed back by the crowd.
In this way, he will get the recognition that he deserves. As a matter of fact, the Raptors will now be able to welcome him back to the team.
Goran Dragic was traded to the Toronto Raptors in the Kyle Lowry sign and trade last summer, but was released on November 29.
The former All-Star, though, had higher ambitions than playing for Toronto. Dragic averaged 8 points in 18 minutes per game for the Raptors in his first season in Toronto, but later decided to leave the team for personal reasons.
After being bought out of his contract by the San Antonio Spurs, he was traded to Toronto and is now playing for the Brooklyn Nets. After the Raptors were forced to postpone the Heat-Spurs game a day later, the Hawks were forced to reschedule the game.
The Raptors are currently 3-8 versus the Celtics. Last season, the Raptors were swept 3-0.
With Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard gone, Toronto Raptors have become a bad matchup for perimeter scorers. However, despite the bad matchup, this team will not be afraid of the Celtics.
The Toronto Raptors have already made major changes to their roster before the 2007-8 season. They acquired point guard Kyle Lowry from the Houston Rockets, signed center Hamed Haddadi, and free agent forward Kyle Flynn.
They also traded forward Dennis Smith Jr. to the Phoenix Suns for another veteran guard, Rudy Gay.
This meant that the Raptors gained an extra scoring option off the bench in the form of second-year guard Kyle Flynn. Raptors win over the Brooklyn Nets is a good news for the Raptors.
Their first-round matchup against the Celtics was a blowout, and their win over the Raptors was no different. The Nets, meanwhile, failed to win the series, so it was a loss for both teams.